Welcome to the Algebra 1 Tap Test 4 study guide. My name is Mr. Sipple. I'll be taking you through a set of 10 problems that match up with the test that you're here to retake. So again, we're not here to waste your time or torture you. We're here just to help you raise your grade. So by redoing this test study guide, you'll know what's on the test, and then you'll be able to do well once you retake it. So first thing first, let's go ahead and put our name on the top of our paper. We want to make sure you get credit for being here, so write your name on the top. And then some of you are coming from different teachers, so under period, if you would just write your teacher's name, so I can make sure to get it back to your teacher so that you can get credit for being here. So your teacher's name. And as I said, so there's 10 questions, so I'm going to do the first problem on the left column just to show you how to do it, and then we'll have you try number 1 in the middle and number 1 on the right side. So to see if you know how to do it at that point, and then we'll check the answers. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. And this is graphing is one of those things that a lot of people say, like, oh, I hate graphing, it's hard. But to be honest with you, there's really not a lot of work here. So I think hopefully after going through this study guide, you'll see that graphing's maybe not as bad as you thought it was. So this is pretty simple. It says x equals 3. So when it says x equals 3, well, all that is telling you to do is it's telling you which axis to go to, either the x or the y, and it's telling you what number to go to on that axis. So, for instance, what this is saying is it's saying go to positive 3 on the x axis. Okay, well, that's easy enough, right? So let's just go to positive 3 on the x-axis. So here's the x-axis right here, right? There's our x. And so I go over 1, 2, 3. And maybe we should note, by the way, since this is our first problem that we're working here. So this is the x-axis. That is the y-axis. As far as the numbering, how the numbering goes, and it's already kind of labeled on the graph. You can see a positive 6 on the right, negative 6 on the left. But so these are the positive x's to the right, negative x's to the left, positive y's to the top, and then negative y's to the bottom. And so what this says, it says draw a line that goes through positive 3 on the x. Well, we've got a point right there. And then what we're looking to do is we want to draw a line that only touches positive 3. Well, the only way that you could draw a line that only touches positive 3 on the x is to draw a vertical line like that. Alright, well, go ahead and pause the video now and give number 1 in the middle a try. See what you come up with. Alright, well, let's see what you got with number 1 in the middle. So it says x equals negative 2. So pretty much the same thing as the last one, right? So x equals negative 2. All that means is it means just to draw a line that only goes through negative 2, right, because there's a negative right there, so we see the negative. So only goes through negative 2 on the x-axis. Well, so let's see, here's the x again. 0's here, so we go 2 to the left, so that would be negative 2. And then we're drawing a line that only goes through negative 2, so you'd have a line that looks like that. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video now and try number 1 on the right side if you haven't already done so. If you have already done number 1 on the right, then we're going to check it here in a second. Okay, well, let's see what you got for number 1 on the right side. This one says x equals 5. So x equals 5 means draw a line that only goes through positive 5 on the x-axis. Again, here's x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's positive 5 on the x-axis. You might be saying, well, what about y? Well, the first problem, we're looking at just x. And then in the second problem that we're going to look at next, we'll look at what if it says y equals a number. Alright, well, so let's look at number 2. So it says y greater than negative 4. So you notice something a little different here. It doesn't say equals. It actually says a greater than symbol. And we'll talk about real quick, how did I even know that that was the greater than symbol? Well, one thing I think one easy way to kind of remember this is if you think about what letter the greater than symbol looks like. You might have to use your imagination a little bit. But the greater than symbol maybe kind of looks like a G. And that would be for greater than. If you want to think about the less than symbol, think about the less than symbol kind of looking like an L that fell over a little bit. And so if that looks like an L, then that means less than. So that's one kind of way to remember the greater than and less than symbol, because sometimes people forget those two. Alright, so similar to the last one, it tells you which axis to go to and then which number on that axis. So this says go to -4 on the y-axis. On the y-axis. Alright, let's go to -4 on the y. So now this time we're talking about the y. So we're going to go to -4 on the y. So here's 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. Now if it said y equals -4, then I would draw a line and I'd be done, I'd call it a day. But the difference here is that it's an inequality, so then there's two additional questions I have to ask myself. First of all, I have to ask myself, which kind of line am I going to draw? Am I going to draw a solid line or a broken line? How you tell the difference is that if you look to see if there's a little line underneath it, if it's the or equal to. So for instance, a line underneath it means you're including everything on that line. You're including -4. If we look at our problem, you notice there's no little line underneath there. So what that means is that we're actually going to draw a broken line. Oop, too much highlighter. We're going to draw a broken line because it's a greater than, right? So we're going to draw a broken line. And so what that would look like is that we just would have, and broken, dash, dotted, whatever you want to say, it's all the same thing. So we'll have a line that looks like that. Now, the second question over here says, which way do I shade? Do I shade above or below? Well, we've already established that this meant greater than. And if you think about something that's greater than you think of something that's above where you are. So greater than means above. So that means we're going to shade everything to the top of the line or above the line. So I'll get my marker out here just to shade, right? And then you just would shade this with your pencil. So just shade everything that's above. So that would be y greater than -4. Alright, so try number 2 in the middle, see what you come up with. And we'll pause now. Okay, well, let's see what you should have got for number 2 in the middle. So this one says y less than or equal to 3. So this would mean to go to 3 on the y-axis. Again, we're talking about the y. So let's go to, and it's a +3, so 1, 2, 3. Alright, so I'm right there. And let's take a look at the line. Which line do I draw, solid or broken? Well, it looks like there is a little line underneath there. See that little line underneath? So that means that it's going to be a solid line. So if it's going to be a solid line, there we go. If it's going to be a solid line, then we're going to draw a solid line across, like that. And then the only other thing that we have to decide is we just have to decide which way we're going to shade. Again, if it says an equal sign, there's no shading with an equal sign. So it's only less than or greater than that tells you direction as far as whether you should shade above or below. Alright, so to me, as we just kind of said in that on the last problem, we said that if you think about it, the less than symbol looks like an L. So this is going to be less than, and we know that less than means below. Right, because if you said like, oh, my little brother's in a grade that's less than me, they're in a grade that's below where you are, right? So this idea that less than means below. So then we're going to shade everything below. And we'd have something that looks like that. All right, well, pause it now, and let's see what you get for number 2 on the right side. Alright, so should have number 2 done at the on the right side. So let's see what you got. So this says y greater than -2. So let's see, y greater than -2 means to go to -2 on the y. So -2 on the y would be here 0, -1, -2. And let's see what kind of line that we need to draw here. Let's take a look at what we've got. So there is no line underneath there. So that's telling me that that's going to be a broken line. So that would be a broken line. The deal is with my highlighter. Alright, come back. There we go. Alright, that's better. So that's going to be a broken line. So let's see here. We're going to draw a broken line. And again, this line is side to side. It's a horizontal line because when we say -2 on the y, what we're saying is draw a line that only goes through -2 on the y. Well, the only way that we could draw that would be side to side. Let's check out the symbol. So the symbol that says a greater than, because again, remember that our greater than symbol looks like a G if we used our imagination, right? So that would be greater than, and then greater than means above. So we're going to shade everything that's above. So again, we'll get our marker out, and we'll shade everything above. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. So now this one's a little bit different. So this says y equals 2/3 x minus 4. You notice the first two. On number 1, it was just x in a number, and on number 2, it was just y in a number. So what you notice differently here about number 3 is that there's both an x and a y. Well, so what that's called is we call that slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. And what this is that because there's now an x and a y in there, there's actually going to be 2 points to our line. Because you think back to first and second one, we were only making one little dot or one little point, and then we drew our line. Well, now that there's an x and a y, we're actually going to be drawing 2 points. And by the way, I would tell you the little diagram here in the top right corner, y equals mx plus b. The m represents what we call the slope. The b represents what we call the y-intercept. I would write that down at the top part of your page. You know, so you got your name on the right side, and over on the left side there's an open space. So go ahead and write this down at the top of your page because we're going to refer back to that. Now, I'm going to copy the problem down just so I give myself a little bit of room. You probably don't need to do that. All right, so let's kind of figure out what this is saying. And by the way, graphing, this is what I meant about graphing being really easy, is all you have to do is just look at this number. This tells you where to put the first point. Then you look at this number. This tells you where to put the second point. And it only takes 2 points to make a line, so we don't really even have to do any work. It's almost like telling time. You just look at the minute hand, you look at the hour hand, you tell what time it is. So we're going to be able to tell how to draw this line just by looking at this number and just by looking at this number. All right, so the last number, what we call the b, is what is the y-intercept. So that means intercept means where something crosses, right? So this is where the line crosses the y-axis. And one way that we kind of remember that is the b tells us where to begin. So what this is going to tell us is that -4 means to begin at -4 on the y-axis. All right, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And by the way, since that's called you notice this is called the y-intercept, it's not called the x-intercept. So you're always going to be starting on the y-intercept. Now, the number in front of x, what that does is it tells you how to move from there. So that is our slope. It tells us how steep the line is going to be. Is it going to be a really steep line, or is it going to be kind of a flat line? Right? And you think of that word slope, you talk about the slope of a mountain, ski slopes. So again, it just refers to how steep something is. So one thing you can follow here is if you look down in the bottom right, and again, this might be something you want to copy down at the top of your page as well. So this says slope equals, a number on the top tells you up or down. If that number is positive, then that's going to be the number of times you're going to move up. So I'm at -4, and I'm going to go up 2. And then the number on the bottom tells you how many to go to the right. And you'll notice, by the way, down here that I wrote always to the right. Now, in this case, we went up because it was positive, but we're always going to go to the right. And that's just, you read from left to right. So when we do math or when we look at graphs, we look at graphs from left to right as well. So this would be up 1, 2, and right 1, 2, and 3. And then there's our 2 points. So now we're just going to connect the dots. So you'd have a line that looks something like that. I didn't do any work. I just looked at this number. That told me where to put the first point. I looked at that number. That told me how to move from there. And by the way, when you look at the graph, I almost kind of think of the graph like a map, like of streets. And what this says is go up 2 streets and go right 3 streets, get over to your buddy's house, right? So if you're here, this says go up 2 streets and then go over 3 streets to the right, and then there you are. All right, well, so take a second, try number 3 in the middle. Should have number 3 in the middle complete by now, so let's see what you would get on this one. So this one says y equals 3/4 x minus 2. So again, the y-intercept, the last number, right? And in slope-intercept form, the y-intercept is always going to be this last number. So the last number is always where you're going to begin. So we're going to begin at -2. And again, that's always -2 on the y. 0, -1, and -2. And then the slope tells us how and where to move from there. The number on top tells you up or down. In this case, since it's positive, it would tell you to go up. And the number on the bottom tells you how many to the right. So this says to get to your friend's house, you got to go up three blocks and then 4 blocks to the right. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then always, always, always to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we just connect the points. So again, we didn't really even do any work there. We just looked at the numbers, and then we knew how to draw the picture from there. And you notice my line wasn't completely straight. That's okay. We're not going for perfection here. So the main thing is that we got the y-intercept in the right spot, and then we have the slope marked out correctly. All right, so go ahead and pause. Try number 3 on the right side. Okay, so should have number 3 on the right side. Let's check to see what you got on that one. So this one is y equals 1/2 x minus 5. So you have a y-intercept of -5. So again, always, always starting on the y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5, right? Because that tells you where to begin. And then the slope just tells you where to go from there. So this one has a +1 for a slope. So we're going to go up 1, and we're going to go right 2. So up 1, right 2, 1, 2. You might be wondering, by the way, you're like, well, so do we ever go down? Yeah, we do, actually. These 3 problems, each one of these have had a positive slope. The number on the top of the fraction has been positive. That's why we've gone up. That won't always be the case, and actually here in a second we're going to look at one where you would go down. And then we're just going to connect our points. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. That's all right. We get the idea. All right, so that's what you should have had for number 3. All right, so let's look at number 4. And as I mentioned a second ago there, it's not always that you're going to be going up. Sometimes you could go down, and that's actually what's going to happen in this case. Other thing you should notice is that it's an inequality symbol, right? So that's one thing you'll notice about this test is that it kind of goes back and forth between an equation where you're just drawing a line, and then an inequality where you have to decide solid or broken, and am I going to shade up or am I going to shade down? So it kind of goes back and forth between those two. Now, when you're graphing in slope-intercept form and inequality, everything is exactly the same as what we just did. The only thing that's different is that guy right there, the inequality symbol. But we've already talked about what to do with that. We just have to decide if we're going to draw a solid line or broken line, and if we're going to shade up or down. But the graphing part of it is exactly the same, nothing different. The last number, that's your y-intercept, tells you where to begin. And again, that's always, always, always on the y, right? Because that's why it's called the y-intercept, is because it's always on the y. That's a +2. All right, so we're right there. And let's take a look at the slope. Now, the slope, you're like, hey, it's not a fraction. Well, that's okay. If it's not a fraction, you can make any number a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. So if it's not already a fraction, go ahead and make it a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. Now, so what the slope on this one tells you to do, because that's a negative, that's going to tell you to go down 3. But the number on the bottom, remember we said always, always, always to the right? You're going to go 1 to the right. A lot of times what students do is they say, oh, it's negative, so I'm going to go down 3 and then left 1. Well, no. You're going to go down 3, yes, because the 3 is negative, but you're still going to go to the right. So it's always, always, always to the right. Now, the other thing we have to decide on this one is we have to decide which kind of line am I going to draw. Am I going to draw a solid line or a broken line? Well, let's take a look. If there's a solid line underneath there, I'm drawing a solid line. I see a solid line right there. So that means that I'm going to draw a solid line. So we'll come back over here. And it does make a difference, by the way. If it's supposed to be solid and you draw one that's broken, then you're going to lose points on that. So it does make a difference. You got to be careful with that. And what else do I got to decide? Well, I've got to decide which way I'm going to shade. So that one looks like an L, and I know that a L means less than, and I know that less than means to shade below. So I'm going to shade everything that's below that line, right? Less than means below. So I'm going to shade everything that's below that line. So we'll shade everything below so you get a picture that looks like that. Alright, well, take a second, try number 4 in the middle. It's exactly the same as this, just little different numbers, but otherwise pretty much exactly the same thing. So go ahead and give number 4 in the middle a try. Well, let's take a look and see what you got for number 4 in the middle. So this one says y greater than negative 2x plus 5. So it's in slope-intercept form. It's an inequality, so I'm going to have to do some shading here. But the graphing part is going to be exactly the same as far as how I started off. So I'm always starting here with the last number. That's where I'm going to begin. So I'm going to begin at positive 5 on the y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the slope tells me how to move it out from there. Now, again, if it's not a fraction, you can make it a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. In time, when you get into practice with this and you know that it's just really going to be over 1, then maybe you don't necessarily write that part of it. Maybe you do that part mentally. But definitely right now, as you're still trying to pick this stuff up, I would definitely get in the habit of writing that 1 there. All right, so we know that that means that we're going to go down 2 and that we're going to go right 1. So down 2 and right 1. So down 1, 2, and then 1 to the right. And there's our point. Now, if it were a line, if it said equals, we'd go ahead and draw a line and we'd be done. But it's an inequality symbol, so we have to decide which way we're going to shade. I'm looking for a line underneath. I don't see a line underneath. So that's going to be a broken line, right? So since there is no line underneath there, then that's going to end up being a broken line because it's a greater than. So let's draw a broken line. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? We're not really using a ruler or anything here. We're just trying to kind of sketch the graph. And then let's figure out which way we're going to shade this thing. So this is a greater than symbol. So again, as we've said, the greater than means above. And the greater than looks like a G. I keep repeating this, by the way, not to annoy you. I keep repeating this because this is something that's a really common mistake that a lot of people make a mistake on. So hopefully by the end of doing this study guide, you will never, ever, ever mistake or not be able to tell the difference between less than and greater than. At least that's our goal. All right, so the greater than means above. So you're going to shade everything above where you are. So if you think of what's above the line, everything that would be that direction would be above the line. And by the way, you might be saying, and we hadn't mentioned this yet, but you might be saying, like, well, I don't know, what's the difference between above or below? Like, how do I know if that's above? Why isn't this above over here? Well, so if you think about a little guy standing on the side of the mountain there, right? And then you say, like, well, what's above where he is? Well, if you shaded over here, then you're shading underneath his feet. Well, that's not above where he is. So what above would be everything above his head, right? So that would be everything to this top side. So that's one way that you can kind of tell the difference as far as what would be above and what would be below. For instance, on the last one here, so this was a less than. This is number 4 on the left side, right? So if we drew our little hiker guy on the mountain there, we were supposed to shade below where he was. So below would be below his feet. So it'd be everything this direction, right? So I don't know. So that might be one thing that helps you if you want to draw a little stick figure guy that's on the mountain there, so you can kind of tell the difference between above and below. That's always one thing that's good to help you. All right, well, pause now and go ahead and give number 4 on the right side a try. See what you come up with. Okay, well, let's see what you would have had for number 4 on the right side. So we've got y less than or equal to negative 4x plus 3. So that's our inequality we're working with. Again, not going to change. Last number, that's where you're starting, right? So that's where you're going to begin. So positive 3 on the y. So 1, 2, 3. And then the slope, we always want to think a slope as a fraction. So if it's not a fraction, put a 1 underneath it. Negative tells you to go down. Number on the bottom, always, always to the right. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, but I probably should have. Again, this is another good strategy to hopefully you're doing this as we're going along, is put in these arrows, right? Because you got to do little things to help remind yourself what it is you're doing so that you're interacting with the material so that you, again, know what you're doing there. So negative means you're going to go down, and the number on the bottom always means to go to the right. So that would be down 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to the right. And then we got to decide whether it's going to be a solid or broken line. So again, I'm just looking for a solid line underneath. I see a solid line, so I know that that's going to be a solid line that I'm going to draw. So let's draw a solid line. Looks something like that. And then we just got to figure out which way we're going to shade on this one. Well, so let's take a look at the symbol. That symbol looks like an L to me, so I know that less than means that I'm going to shade below. So since that's less, I'm going to shade below. All right, so let's shade below. So let's put our hiker guy back up here. So Mr. Hiker Man, he's on the mountain. And so we want to shade below where he is. So when you think about below, we're thinking of below his feet, right? Because above his head, that would be everything above. Well, below his feet would be below, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking to shade below. So we will shade everything that's below his feet, and we'd get a picture that looks like that. All right, well, let's almost there. Hey, halfway done. We're at number 5 out of 10, so we're getting there. So let's look at number 5 on the left side. 2x plus 3y equals negative 12. Well, hey, this looks a little different, right? And maybe let's take a look at this for a second and see if we can kind of pick out what looks different. I'm going to rewrite this. 2x plus 3y equals negative 12. Well, so, we said the whole thing about, okay, you start the b's where you begin, the last number, but then, wait, it's not in the right order. So if you look at slope-intercept form, look over here on the right side, it's y equals mx plus b. The y is by itself, right? So this is an example of something that's not in slope-intercept form. So something that is in the form of ax plus by equals c, this is what we refer to as standard form. So this is in standard form. And this would be another note to make at the top left of your page. So we tell the difference there. So that's actually standard form. What's the difference between slope-intercept form and standard form? Basically there's kind of two ways you want to think about it. First of all, if it's in slope-intercept form, the y is by itself out front, right? Whereas you see here, the y is not by itself. Maybe another way to think of it is that in slope-intercept form, the x and y are on different sides of the equation. You notice here in standard form, x and y are on the same side. Well, so our little trick here of the b's where you begin and the slope, that only works when it's in slope-intercept form. So we're going to have to rearrange this equation. We're going to have to move some numbers around. So what we're going to have to do with this is that we're going to have to solve for y. Or another way to think of that is that we want to get y by itself. Get y by itself. He's kind of a loner, wants to be by himself, don't want anybody bugging him. So he didn't want this x over here bugging him, doesn't want the 3 over here bugging him, so we got to get rid of that stuff. Well, so think about how we get rid of stuff in algebra, right? So how do we get rid of stuff is we do the opposite. So the opposite of a positive 2x, would be a minus 2x or a negative 2x. And then we have our golden rule, what you do to one, you do to the other. So we'd have to do that to both sides. Of course, those x's cancel out. And again, you don't have to write the 0 or anything right there, right? When we slash it out like that, that's what we're saying is that it's gone. We've eliminated it. So you don't have to write anything additional there. But we will bring down the 3y, right, because that's still there. And then this says negative 12 minus 2x. Be careful with how we have this, because you might think, oh, well, maybe that's negative 14x. Well, the thing is though, these are not like terms. A number is not the same thing as an x. These are not like terms, so I cannot combine those two things. So let me get my eraser out, because that is not correct. Well, since they're not like terms, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it down. Negative 2x minus 12. Why did I write it in that order? Well, in slope-intercept form, you know, the slope and the x is in the middle. So that's why I didn't write it as negative 12 minus 2x, because the x is always in the middle, so that's why I put it in the middle there. Now, y is not by itself quite yet. There's a 3 in front of there, and that says 3 times y, so the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 3. Again, our golden rule, what you do to one, you do to the other. So you got to divide everybody by 3. And those 3's cancel out. Finally, y is now all by himself. And as you look at this fraction, negative 2 over 3, it doesn't divide evenly. That's okay. It's a fraction. We'll leave it that way. And actually, we like it that way because that's what slope is. Slope's a fraction, so we'll just leave it. Negative 12 divided by 3, which would give us a negative 4. Now, I told you earlier on that, you know, what's nice about graphing is there's no work. You just look at it and make the picture. So here's the kind of one exception to it, which is that when they give it to you in standard form, you have to take it from x and y being on the same side to x and y being on different sides. But once you get it there, now you can graph it and you're home free. So now that it's in slope-intercept form, now I can say, okay, well, that's where I'm going to begin, which is negative 4 on the y. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then my slope, that works the same. This is a negative, so I'm going to go down 2, and I'm going to go right 3. So down 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 to the right. And connect your 2 points. Oh, wait, what about that whole solid, broken, shade up, shade down thing? Well, it's an equal sign, right? No, there's no less than or greater than here, so there's no shading. So don't have to worry about that. That's a little less work. And just connect your 2 points, and then there is your line. All right, well, number 5 in the middle is waiting for you. It's exactly the same thing as this, so go ahead and give it a try, see what you come up with. Should have number 5 complete by this point, so let's look at number 5. And I'm just rewriting this so I give myself a little bit of room. Hopefully on the study guide you feel like you have enough room to write underneath the graph. Alright, so this is not in slope-intercept form. Again, we said this is what we call standard form. X and y are on the same side. So we just have to get x by himself first. And when you're doing this, when you're moving from standard form to slope-intercept form, moving the x over is going to be the first thing you do every single time. Every single time, that's going to be the first thing you're going to do is move the x over. And so you've got bring down that 2y equals, remember, x in the middle still, negative 8x plus 4. And let's say, you know, and this would have been, should have mentioned this earlier as well, but, you know, this would be a point. So let's say you made a mistake with, you know, getting this in standard form. But let's say you figure it like you can take the problem from here. Well, then pause the video here and see if you can do the rest of this on your own. So you really should be trying to do as much of this on your own. If you're just waiting for me to do it for you, it's not going to help you out all that much, right? So you really should be trying to do as much of this as you can on your own. And the great thing about having the video is you can pause it and then continue your work. All right, well, let's continue our work. Y is not by himself yet. So let's divide by 2. And we're going to do that all the way across. And the 2's cancel each other out. We're left with just y. Negative 8 divided by 2. Now that does divide evenly. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. But, you know, we want to think of it as a fraction. So you want to put the 1 underneath through that. That'll work. And then 4 divided by 2, which would give you 2. All right, B is where you begin. So we're going to begin at positive 2. And that's always, always, always on the y-axis. See, nothing's different here. We've said the same thing 100 times now. So begin at positive 2 on the y-axis. Your slope tells you how to move from there. So that's a negative. So I'm going to go down. And the number on the bottom is always, always, always to the right. All right, so to get to your friend's house, you got to go to down 4 streets and 1 street to the right. So down 4 streets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 street to the right, and then there you are. And then we'll connect. Ooh, I got a little off track there. Let's see this way. That's even worse. But you know what? That's all right. We're not trying to go for protection here. Or for perfection, rather, I should say. So, good enough, right? Just sketching the graph. Well, go ahead and pause the video now and try number 5 on the right side. Okay, well, let's see what you'd have for number 5 on the right side. Once again, not in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the way we like it, because then we don't have to do any work. We just look at it and graph it. But that's all right. We can handle a little bit. Again, the first thing is always going to move that x over. So subtract 6x from both sides. And those x's cancel. And so you're left with 2y equals, bring down the negative 6x, minus 4. And then you're going to divide both sides by 2. Do that all the way across. And 2's cancel. Negative 6 divided by 2, which would give you negative 3. Negative 4 divided by 2, which would give you negative 2. Again, last number, the b is where we're going to begin. So we're going to begin at negative 2 on the y-axis. And we should know that by now. So y-axis, negative 2, so negative 1, negative 2. And then the slope tells us how and where to move from there. So what we're going to take is that says negative 3, which means we're going to go down. And then number on the bottom, always, always, always to the right. You're never going to go to the left. Always going to go to the right. Down 1, 2, 3, over right 1. It's an equal sign, right? So we don't have to worry about all that shading stuff. No broken dotted. Don't have to worry about any of that. Just draw a line. Easy stuff. All right, so now we do need to look at one that's in standard form. Take a look at number 6. So we do need to look at what if there's an inequality that's in standard form, meaning, again, where we don't have the x and y on the same side. Well, we do, so we need to get it back into slope-intercept form. So let's start with it. 3x minus 2y greater than 4. We said with this is that, that you're trying to get y by itself. The first thing is always going to be to move the x over to the right side. And we're always going to be doing the opposite to move stuff. So the opposite of a minus 3x, or positive 3x rather, would be a minus 3x. Right, so the 3x's cancel each other out. And you've got negative 2 greater than negative 3x plus 4. Remember, the x is always in the middle. So don't do this. Maybe let me get my eraser out, because we haven't really shown that yet. But as far as what you might be thinking to do. So don't do this. Don't do 4 minus 3x. Right, because when we write it in slope-intercept form, the x is always in the middle. So don't write that. Let me get my eraser back out. So we know that x is in the middle, so that would be a negative 3x plus 4. And then we're trying to get rid of the negative 2 that's in front of the y. So again, we're always, in this case, we're going to divide. And we always, what we do to one, we do to the other. So we divide across all the way, everything by negative 2. Those cancel each other out. And notice on the slope here, by the way, 2 negatives. Be really careful about this. 2 negatives. You know that 2 negatives make a positive. So this would actually turn into a positive 3 over 2. Again, because those 2 negatives make a positive. X and then minus 2. Now you notice that you're like, hey, what about the greater than symbol? Well, I wanted to come back to that because there is one special little thing here, which is that, and if you recall from solving inequalities, that when you multiply or divide by a negative, it causes you to switch the inequality symbol. So that greater than would turn into a less than. So notice what happened there. That greater than turned into a less than. And, you know, as far as why that is, looks like Pac-Man's eating something there. I'm not sure. Maybe an ice cream cone. But as far as that, right, and so maybe make a note of it to yourself here, is that we're going to switch. I'll just make a little note. And again, this might be a place, go back up to the top left of the page on the front side to make a note there, or wherever you can make it. But we're going to switch the inequality symbol, because that's what the less than or greater than is. It's an inequality symbol. So we're going to switch the inequality symbol when we divide by a negative. So it's not you know, when you divide every time. It's only when you multiply or divide by a negative. And it is multiply or divide by a negative, but in this context, when we're going from standard form to slope-intercept form, the only negatives that we're going to be working with would be dividing. So we're going to just stick with that and say, well, that when you're going to divide by a negative, you'd have to switch it. Now, again, everything else is the same as far as where you begin. Right? You're going to begin at -2. That's the same. The slope tells you how to move from there. So it tells you to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, right 2, 1, 2. And then we just have to decide solid or broken. So let's take a look, solid or broken. There's no line underneath there. See, notice there's no line underneath there, so that's going to be a broken line because it is just a less than. Not a less than or equal to, but just a less than. So let's draw ourselves a broken line. And which way am I going to shade on this one? Well, so this one says it's a less than, because again, it looks like an L. Right? If I wanted to say that looks like a less than. So where's less than? Well, here's our little guy on the mountain. If I want to know what's less than where he is, it's where everything's below where he is. So I would shade everything to the bottom. And it would look like that. Because again, less than is less than his feet, you know, kind of where below his feet, where that would be, and that's what it would look like. All right, well, pause the video here and try number 6 in the middle. And again, I'll give you a hint right now. Number 6 in the middle and on the right side, and number 6 on the test itself is a problem exactly like this, where you're going to have to switch the inequality symbol, where it's going to go from one inequality symbol to the other because you're dividing by a negative. So watch out for that one. You will be switching. All right, so go ahead and try number 6 in the middle. Okay, well, let's see what you get for number 6 in the middle. Again, you should have already done this yourself. You're just checking your work. If you didn't get it, then follow along with me to the place where you got stuck, and then once you get unstuck, pause the video and see what you can do with it by yourself from there. All right, so again, first thing, it's in standard form. We want slope-intercept form. It has x and y on the same side. We want y by itself. So we're going to subtract 2x and move 2x over. And we'll bring down the -5y. X is always in the middle, -2x plus 20. We want to get y by itself. So we're going to divide by -5, divide by -5, divide by -5. And then -5's cancel, freeing y. Y is now by himself. He's really excited about that. There are two negatives. And again, I'm just going to warn you right now. Number 6 on the test is exactly like this, where there's going to be a negative there, and then you're going to divide by a negative, and then those two negatives are going to make a positive. So just be careful with that. And then 20 divided by -5, which would give you -4. Now again, just like the last one, we said that if you multiply or divide by a negative, it causes you to switch the inequality symbol. So that less than or equal to would turn into a greater than or equal to. And again, let's notice why. So the less than turned into a greater than or equal to, and the reason for that is because we divided by a negative. So notice that switch there. Now once we do that, everything's the same, right? Where you're going to begin 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 4, right? And then you've got a slope of up 2 and right 5. So up 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. And let's check solid broken. Let's see what's happening with that. There is a line underneath there, right? So I see that line underneath there, so that means that it's going to be a solid line, and it's a greater than or equal to. So I'm going to draw a solid line. Whoop, missed Mr. Red Dot there. Let's be a little more careful. There we go. And let's figure out which way we're going to shade. Well, let's get hiker guy out. So there's hiker guy on the mountain. And you notice, by the way, the slope here, this is not a very steep slope. So this is a little bit of a flatter slope. So you notice that as the number in front of x, as the slope gets bigger, it gets a line that's steeper and steeper and steeper. But this one's kind of flat. So which way am I going to shade? Well, that looks like a G to me. Right? Looks like a G to me. So we're going to say that that's greater than, a greater. So that means we're going to shade above. Right? So since that's a greater than symbol, we are going to shade above. Well, above, where would above be? Well, let's look at hiker. Well, it wouldn't be down here because that's below his feet. So it's going to be everything above where he is. So it actually would be this whole chunk of the graph. Right? It'd be this whole area here. Everything above. All right, so well, that was number 6 in the middle. Hopefully you got that one correct. If you didn't, make sure you correct the mistake that you made. And pause the video now and try number 6 on the right side. Okay, so should have number 6 on the right side completed by this time. So let's check and see what you would have got for number 6 on the right side. Again, as we've said many times before, this is in standard form. We want it in slope-intercept form. We want y by itself. So we're going to get rid of that x first, throw him to the other side, trying to get y by himself. And they cancel each other out. Bring down what you got left. You got negative 3y greater than negative 4x plus 12. Y is not quite by himself yet. He's got this negative 3 in front that we want to give him the boot. So we want to get rid of that. And again, what we do to 1, we've got to do it to everybody. So that gives us y. Again, same deal here. This has been 3 problems in a row where we ran into this. The negative and negative, it's going to make a positive. That's going to be a positive 4/3. 12 divided by negative 3 would be a negative 4. And again, the other thing that's similar here with number 6, and number 6 on the test as well, is that all of these, that's a greater than, and we're going to have to switch that inequality symbol, and so we're going to have to switch that to a less than. All right, well, let's graph it. Hopefully we should be, by the way, at this point feeling pretty good about the graphing. Begin at negative 4. So hopefully at this point feeling good about this. And our slope, which would be up 4, right 3, up 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1, 2, 3. And let's check that whole solid broken thing. Well, it looks like I don't see a line underneath there, so that tells me that it's going to be a broken line because it's broken because it's a less than. And so I'm going to draw a broken line. So I'll have something that looks like that. And let's figure out which way we're going to shade on this one. So it looks like an L to me. We know that less than means below. Let's bring out our hiker guy, a little steeper mountain on this one. He's a little more tired. So less than would be everything below his feet. So here's his little feet down here, and this would be everything below his feet. So we'd shade that area right there. All right, well, we're almost there. Hang in there. We're on number 7. Number 7 actually through 10, these are slightly different problems. What's different about this one, if you think, let's look back at number 6 for a second, is they gave us the equation, or the inequality, and then we had to make the picture ourselves. So now they're kind of flipping it around on us. They're saying, hey, here's the picture. We already made it for you, but what we want to know is who or what made that picture. And what I mean by who or what made that picture is that you know that it would be something in slope-intercept form, right? Y equals something x plus something b. And let's write that down on our paper. So we know that this is the slope, and that this is the y-intercept. So there's some y-intercept that made this line, and then some slope that made that line as well. Well, let's just figure out what it is. So let's look at where it begins, or what the y-intercept is. So if I look at the y-intercept, here's my y, and it looks like boop, right there. That would be my y-intercept. That would be at -1, -2, -3. So that means I have a y-intercept of -3. Now, all I need to do is just figure out how they moved from there. What you're looking for is you're going to start off at -3, and then we're gonna ride the line down. And the reason why we're riding it down is because we're always going to the right, right? We're never going to the left. So just keep riding that line down, and then what you're looking for is the line goes through a corner. See right here, that goes kind of halfway through the box. That's not a corner. If I keep going, oh, there's a corner. So that must have been where they dropped the other point. So I look at that and I say, well, how many down and how many over? Well, it looks like you would go down 1 and then right 2, right? You would go down 1 and right 2. Well, because we went down 1, that would be a negative slope, so it would be a -1/2. Had we gone up, it'd be a +1/2, but since we went down, it was a -1/2. Now I'm going to kind of just clean this up a little bit, and write it without the boxes. So y equals -1/2 x plus a -3. It's really just the same thing as -3. I mean, if you left it as plus -3, that wouldn't be wrong, but that's the the formal way that we would write it. Would be y equals -1/2 x -3. But I do encourage you, and I do want you on your paper, use these boxes, because I want you to get the idea that all you're doing is you're just filling in, hey, what's the y-intercept that they used, and then what's the slope that they used, right? So we just want to see that. All right, so go ahead and pause it now. Try 7 in the middle. All right, so let's see what you got for number 7 in the middle. Hopefully you think this is a little bit easier. To be honest with you, like number 6, that was probably the toughest one, because it's not in slope-intercept form. You got to figure out which way you're going to shade and all that other stuff. So I think this is kind of a return to something maybe a little bit easier. All right, I do like these boxes though, because I'm just thinking about, okay, what y-intercept did they use? What slope did they use? So I'm just kind of filling in the blank, almost in a way. So I'm going to know, well, what y-intercept did they use? Well, if I look see where it touches the y, touches right there, and that would be at a +2. And then I just want to figure out, well, what slope did they use? Right? What would my m be? So I'm going to pick up where I left off at +2, and then I'm going to ride the line up, right? Because this line goes uphill. So if I ride it to the right, that's not a corner. Almost, but not quite. That goes like halfway through the box. That almost does, but not quite. Oh, so there we go. I had to travel a little bit on this one. The other one was kind of close. So let's see how many we have to go up and how many we have to go over. Looks like we have to go up 1, 2, 3. So that would be up 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. So that would be a +3/4, or a +3/4. And then we'll just clean it up. Y equals 3/4 x plus 2. All right, so should be feeling pretty good about that. Go ahead and pause now and try number 7 on the right side. All right, well, let's see what you got for number 7 on the right side. Again, they gave us a line here, so we just want to figure out what that line would be in slope-intercept form. So let's figure out the y-intercept, because that's where we begin. We said that a million times now. So let's see where they started. Oh, looks like right there. Right, that would be our y-intercept. Looks like that's at -1 on the y. And let's figure out what the slope they used was. Again, looking for the next corner. Not a corner, not a corner. Ooh, there we go, that's a corner. And then we just want to figure out how many down, how many over. Well, it looks like that would be 2 down, so I'm going to say -2. And then over 1, 2, 3. So down 2, right 3. So that would give us a slope of a -2/3. So I would have y equals negative 2/3 x minus 1. And that's it. So, like I say, it's just kind of flipped around from what we started. We started with something like this, where you had an equation, and you were trying to make the picture. They just flipped it around on us. They made the picture for us, but then they wanted us to come up with the equation in slope-intercept form that made that picture. Alright, so let's take a look at number 8. You'll notice there's some multiple choice on this one, and the reason for that is you'll notice that the answers are not in slope-intercept form. The answers are in standard form, where x and y are on the same side. Well, we're going to ignore the multiple choice for a second. We're going to do this problem like what we just did on number 7, which is figure out what it would be in slope-intercept form first. So I'm going to figure out what the y-intercept is. If I look for the y-intercept, looks like it's right there. -1, -2, -3, -4. So I've got a y-intercept of -4. Right, that's my y-intercept. And then I'm just looking for the slope. So let's see where the slope would be. Again, I'm writing the line up because I'm always going to the right. That's not a corner, not a corner, not a corner. There we go. Found a corner. So let's see here. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 to the right. So we're going to go up 4. So that'd be a positive 4. And then 1 to the right. So that'd be a slope of 4/1. So when I clean that up, I've got y equals 4x minus 4. Now, my challenge here is to try to figure out which one of these out of A, B, C, and D, which one of these are the same thing as y equals 4x minus 4. Well, the only way for me to tell that would be to switch, not the only way, but the way that we're going to look at here would be to switch one of these to slope-intercept form until we find the one that actually works, or the one that fits with what we're looking for. So what I'm going to do, let me just move this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with one, and you know, you don't necessarily have to start with A, but you know, you pick one and you start with it, and then you figure out, okay, well, you know, what would I even try? Well, so if you look at it, and I don't know, let's just start with A. I'll stop talking and we'll just try it. So x plus 4y equals 4. So if I subtracted x from both sides, and again, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for which one of these matches up with this. This is my answer, y equals 4x minus 4. So I'm just trying to figure out which one of these matches up with that. So I'm moving these over into slope-intercept form to see if I can figure that out. So I've got 4y equals negative x plus 4. And then if I divide by 4, I end up with y equals negative 1/4 x plus 1. Well, y equals negative 1/4 x plus 1, that is not what I am looking for, right? I'm not looking for y equals negative 1/4 x plus 1. I'm looking for y equals 4x minus 4. So I could cross A off. I know that A is not going to be the right answer. So just going to go through there, and I don't know, we'll try the one below it. So let me try C. Come over here and try C. And so you get 4x minus y equals 4. And then we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So subtract 4x. And you get negative y equals negative 4x plus 4. Now you have a negative in front there that you're going to have to divide by, so you have to divide everybody by negative 1. And let me pick this up and give ourselves a little more room here. No, I don't want all that. Oh, guess you're not going to give it to me. That's all right. We'll just move it down a little bit. All right, so those negatives, right, the two negatives kind of cancel each other out, so you're left with just a positive y equals positive 4x minus 4. Oh, ding, 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 ding. Right, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for y equals 4x minus 4. So that actually is my correct answer. So that means that the answer would be C. Okay. And once we find the one that works, the one that matches our answer, you don't have to keep doing them. So I don't have to try out B and D. I already know that B and D don't work because there's only one right answer. So I don't have to keep trying those other ones. Now, so you might say, well, is there a, how do I know which one to start? Is there a quicker way where I can kind of figure that out? Well, I think one way that you can think of this is that if you think of finding or looking at what would the y-intercept be. It's a y-intercept of -4. So if you looked at this, if you looked at C, for instance, if you actually solved for the y-intercept there, you'd get y equals -4. But I think this might be the simplest way for us at this point. All right, so try number 8. Pause it now and see what you get with number 8 in the middle. Okay, so let's see what you get with number 8 in the middle. And obviously, this is a little more work to this one. Number 7 was nice because, again, there wasn't really any work to it. So I guess hopefully you notice at this point that if it's in Y slope-intercept form is our super BFF here, our best friend. Because if it's in slope-intercept form, we don't have to do anything. We just look at the numbers and then make the picture. But if it's not in slope-intercept form, we've got a little more work going for us. All right, but we're going to start off the same way, which is we're looking for the y-intercept. Right, looking for where it begins. Looks like it's way up here at the top. So it looks like a +5. And see what kind of slope they used on this one. This line's definitely a little steeper here. If I write the line down, right there. So it looks like that for that line, you would go down 3 and then 1 to the right. So that would be a slope of -3 over 1. All right, so let's clean that up. And y equals -3x plus 5. So that's the big winner. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for y equals -3x plus 5. And we just want to know out of A, B, C, D, which one of those do we think that would match up with? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm looking at A, and they've got 2's and 4's in there. That's not even the right numbers, right? The numbers I'm working with, -3 and 5. So I'm not even going to start with A because I don't think that even has the right numbers. If I look at B, B has 2 and 3 in there. Again, I'm talking about 3's and 5's, so I'm thinking that's probably not it. This one also has 2 and 3. The only answer that actually I see that has a 3 and a 5 in it is C. So I'm not going to even bother with those other ones. I'm going to try C first, and then hopefully that'll work out and we don't have to do the rest of them. So 3x plus y equals 5. So that's what I mean about kind of taking a look at it first. You don't have to do more work than what's necessary. So find the one that matches up, and again, you don't have to start with A. So go through there and pick out the one you think that it might be, and if you're right, then that'll save you some work. But we still want to prove it, though. We don't want to just guess. So we still want to switch it over into slope-intercept form and prove that it does match up, which in this case it does. Y equals -3x plus 5, so that means that C, that C would be our answer there. All right, so let's go ahead and pause now and try number 8 on the right side. All right, so let's see what you got for number 8 on the right side. Same drill. Let's figure out what it would be in slope-intercept form first, and then we'll worry about the big meanie heads that put it in standard form. But we'll figure out what it is in slope-intercept form first. So let's see where they, right there. So -1, -2, -3, -4. So we got a y-intercept of -4. Let's check out the slope. So from there, you're going to go up. Don't have to go up too far. Looks like all we had to do here was go up 2 over 1. Right? So that would be a +2 and 1. So our slope would be 2 over 1. And then when we cleaned it up, we'd have y equals 2x minus 4. Well, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for y equals 2x minus 4. Again, let's do the same deal. Let's not do a bunch of work here. So let's see. In the problem, my answer, I've got a 2. I'm going to highlight that. Right? I've got a 2 and I've got a -4. I look at A, and they've got a 2 and a 5. Well, I'm not talking about 5s. 2 and a 4. Okay, I think it could be C. This one has a 5 and a 3 in it. Well, no. 5 and a 2. No. I'm looking for the one that's got like a 2 and a 4 in it. So I'm thinking it's C, but again, I'm not going to guess. Don't guess, because you could be wrong. So you got to prove it. So you got to work it out and actually put it into slope-intercept form to make sure that it actually does work. Because sometimes it can be deceiving. Sometimes you could pick something that you think, oh yeah, that looks like it's going to be it. But then what happens is that once you actually solve it, maybe it's the right numbers, but maybe the signs are off or something like that. So just be careful with that. We want to make sure we do it the right way. So divide everything by -1. So we get y equals 2x minus 4, which is exactly what I was looking for. So that means that the answer would, on this one, would also be C, because I was looking for y equals 2x minus 4. All right, well, almost there. So let's take a look at number 9. Now, number 9 is pretty much the same thing that we just did, but guess what? Inequalities are back. The shading is back. But that's all right. That's not a big deal. So we're going to do our little box thing here, but we're going to add one other box, because it's not y equals mx plus b. It's figuring out, hey, well, what inequality symbol did they use? That's the other thing we've got to figure out. Right, so this is going to be our symbol. So we have to figure out, is it going to be less than, is it greater than, is there a line underneath there? That's what we've got to figure out. So this is going to be our slope. That part's the same. And then this is going to be our y-intercept. That part is also the same. Well, let's take a look at the picture. Looks like the y-intercept is -3. And let's check out what slope they used. So it looks like right there's the next corner. And let's see how many up and how many over. So it looks like up 1 and then right 2. So that would be a slope of 1/2. And then let's see which way this thing goes. With the inequality, I'm going to bring my hiker guy out on the mountain. And then first of all, I'm going to look at which way is this thing shaded? Is it shaded above his head, or is it shaded below his feet? Well, clearly it's shaded below his feet, right? It's shaded below. And so we know that below means less than. So that's going to be a less than. And then we just got to decide whether it's going to be a solid line or a broken line. Well, if you look at it, it's obviously a solid line. So we know that if it's a solid line and it's shaded below, that would be less than or equal to. So I'm going to put the little line, not the highlighter. I'm going to put the little line underneath it, so that would be less than or equal to. So as far as this, so I get y less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 3. And that would be my final answer. You notice there's no multiple choice on this one. That's what number 10 is going to be. But on number 9, we'll look at, well, what if it's just in slope-intercept form? All right, so go ahead and pause the video now and try number 9 in the middle. All right, well, let's see what you would come up with for number 9 in the middle. So again, I'm going to start this thing off the same way. I've got 3 things I've got to figure out. What's my symbol going to be for this one? What's my slope going to be for this one? Come back here. There we go. Oh, too far. That's all right. We'll redraw it. So figuring out what the slope's going to be. And then what is the y-intercept going to be? Well, let's take a look. So always starting with the y-intercept, looks like it crosses right there at -1. Take a look at the slope. Keep riding the line down until you find the next corner. Not a corner, not a corner. Oh, right there, that's a corner. And let's see. Looks like we're going to go down 2 and right 3. So that's down 2 and right 3. So that would be a slope of a -2/3. Again, negative because we went down. And then let's figure out which way it's shaded. Well, let's put Mountain Man up here. And then I'm asking myself the question, well, is it shaded below his feet or is it shaded above his head? Well, if you look at it, it's shaded above. So we know above means greater than. Right? So above, if it's greater than, right, if it looks like a G, that means greater than. Greater. So greater means above, so it's shaded above. Now I don't have to shade it because they already shaded it, but what I do have to identify is which symbol am I going to use. Well, as we just said there, we're going to use the greater than symbol. And then I just got to decide if it's solid or broken. Well, again, clearly looking at it, it's a solid line, so that means that we would use a solid line. And then so it's going to be a solid line, and it's going to be greater than or equal to. So we'll throw the solid line on there. We'll clean it up. We've got y greater than or equal to negative 2/3 x minus 1. And that would be our answer. All right, so go ahead and pause now. Try number 9. Okay, well, let's see what you got for number 9. Same setup. What's the symbol? What's the slope? What is the y-intercept? Right, so same setup on that. We're looking for the symbol. We want to know what slope did they use. And we want to know where did they start that line. What would the y-intercept be? Now, it's not a big mystery because you just got to look at it. Where's the y-intercept? Well, it's right there. That would be up 1, up 2. So that'd be a positive 2. And let's see what slope they used. Well, so you follow it again, always going to the right, riding the line up, not a corner, not a corner, not a corner. That is a corner. And then I'm going to see how far I traveled. Looks like I went up 1 and then 4 to the right. So that would be plus 1, because positive, right, since we went up. So that would be a positive 1/4. Positive 1/4. And then let's figure out which way this thing is shaded. Looks like it's shaded below. Well, actually, let me throw, it is shaded below. But let me throw a mountain man on here. Or girl. Doesn't have to be a guy, I suppose. Could be a mountain woman. Well, it's shaded. We'll make her a girl. Why not? We've been saying guy the whole time. We'll make her a girl. There you go. She's really happy about that. So which way is it shaded? Well, it's shaded below her feet. So that means that that would be a less than. So you know that's going to be less than because we know that below, well, that's what it means. It means less than. And then, so we want to say, well, is that a solid or a broken line? Well, it is a solid line, so that means that our line is going to be solid. So as far as shading on that one, that's a solid line that would be shaded below. All right. Well, so almost there. I know I said that a couple times, but now we really are almost there because this is the last problem. So thanks for hanging in there. Really appreciate your effort, and hopefully you feel like this has been beneficial and helpful to you so far. So we'll finish up with this last problem, and then hopefully you're ready to give the test a shot. Hopefully you feel a little more confident about it. All right, so we're going to finish up here with one where it is an inequality. You'll notice the ABCD is back, so we know that that is in standard form. We're going to start it the same. We're looking for what's the symbol, what's the slope, what's the y-intercept. So we don't care what they're using. We start with, we always want to work with this in slope-intercept form. And then if it happens to be that they're trying to talk about standard form, well then we can switch it over. But we'll start with the idea that we're working with slope-intercept form. All right, so there's our B up there, which is our y-intercept. And here's our slope, right, which is our M. You notice, by the way, you're like, God, I just keep saying the same thing. Well, because graphing is the same thing, right? I mean, we're doing the same thing each time, the y-intercept, the slope. So, I mean, if you're thinking, hey, it's kind of repetitive, well, but the good thing about that is that just know that it's kind of the same way every time. So as long as you get it, you should feel pretty good about it. All right, so let's look for the y-intercept. Looks like it's right there. So that would be a y-intercept of positive 2. Let's check out the slope. Looks like it goes not a corner, not a corner. Looks like a corner to me. Looks like you'd go down 1, 2, 3, and right 1. So that would be down 3, right 1. Make sure you get that negative on there, right? So since that's going down, that's going to be a negative 3. So that would be a negative 3 over 1. Let's check out the symbol. Now, that's a pretty steep line. I think our hiker person, they're almost kind of sideways getting ready to fall down the mountain, because that is actually a pretty steep line. Well, let's see where it's shaded. Well, look at where their feet are. That is shaded below. So that's shaded below where they are. We know that below means less than. And then we just got to take a look at the line. The line is broken, right? Clearly the line is broken. So what that means is that there will be no line underneath because it's broken. And we shaded below. So actually, there we go. We already have the less than in there, so that looks good. So we've got y less than negative 3x plus 2. Now this is our answer. It's just that our answer, the way they wrote it, is they've kind of got our answer in hiding. So it's in standard form. We just got to switch it over to slope-intercept form. So let's look at, I don't know, let's see if we can kind of maybe figure out what would maybe be a logical place to start. I don't know. The last number is a positive 2. So maybe it's not a negative 2. It's a positive 2. So I think maybe I'll start with one that has a positive 2 in it. Oops, didn't mean that. The other thing, let's take a look at the symbol. The symbol is a less than. So maybe I'll start with the one that is also a less than. So you see that's a greater than. That's a greater than. That's a less than. But it says less than negative 2. I'm looking for less than a positive 2. So I'm going to start with C. I'm going to try this one first. So I'm not trying to make you do more work than what's necessary. If anything, quite the opposite. I'm trying to help you realize that you don't have to go through there and try every single one of them. If you just take a second and kind of think about what you think the answer might be, then try that one. Y less than or equal to negative 3x plus 2. And we've got a winner. So I don't even have to try these other ones. I know the answer is C, so I can stop it right there. I don't have to go any further. All right, so try number 10 in the middle. All right, well, let's try number 10 in the middle, see what you came up with this one as far as out of A, B, C, or D. But again, we're going to start with slope-intercept form, figure out what it would be in slope-intercept form first, and then we'll figure out how they ended up getting it into standard form. But same routine. We need to figure out what the symbol's going to be. Solid, broken, shade up, shade down, all that stuff. Need to figure out what the slope is going to be. There's our slope. And need to figure out what the Y-intercept is going to be. So there's our Y-intercept. So let's take a look at the line. Looks like the Y-intercept is right there. Up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be a Y-intercept of 4. And then let's figure out the slope. So ride that line down. That's not a corner. That is a corner. And let's see what the slope on that one would be. Looks like it goes down 2, and then it goes 1 to the right. So that would be a slope of negative 2 over 1. And let's see which way it's shaded. So let's get our mountain guy out. Or girl, or person, whatever it is. And, alright, it's kind of leaning out that way. And which way is it shaded? Well, it's above, right, not below the feet. It's above, so that means that that would be greater than. So that would be shaded greater than. And then it would be, well, it's a broken line, so that means I'm not going to be putting a line underneath it. So that means it would be y greater than negative 2x plus 4. So that's what we're looking for, y greater than negative 2x plus 4. And then let's see which one of these would match up. So we tried that whole thing earlier of saying, like, well, what numbers are there? There's a negative 2 and there's a 4. And if I look at A and B and C and D, they actually all have 2s and 4s in them. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to help. Let's try the symbol. So my symbol I'm working with here is a greater than. So I would maybe look at the ones that are greater thans. So this is a greater than, D is, and then B is a greater than. So I'm not going to try A and C unless I have to. And then let's look at my number. That's a positive 4, and I see a positive 4 right there. So I'm going to try D first. And again, it may not work out, but we'll just try this one first. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. But again, you still need to prove it though. You still need to show the work, because we don't want to guess and then guess wrong. Negative 2x plus 4. Well, that does match up with what we've got, so that would be my answer. So my answer there would be D. All right, well, take a big breath here. We're almost done. So you just got one problem left. So I know you're sad. It's almost over. The ride's almost over here, but we're coming to an end. So try number 10 on the right. Well, let's see how you did on the last and final problem of our study guide. So let's write it in slope-intercept form first. So we've got to figure out what the symbol's going to be. Got to figure out what the slope, right, which is our m. Got to figure out what the y-intercept is, right? That'd be our y-intercept. Well, let's figure out what the y-intercept would be here. It's right about there, right? So that would be a positive 3 on the y. I didn't have to write positive 3. I'm not even sure why I wrote that, but we know it's a positive 3. And then let's look for the slope. So I'm going to ride the line down, because again, I'm always riding the line to the right, right? So since it's going downhill, I'm going to keep riding it downhill. That's not a corner, not a corner. That is a corner. And let's see how many that traveled. So it looks like it went down 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 to the right. And because it went down, that would be a negative 4 over 1. And then let's figure out what the symbol would be. So here's homeboy here on the mountain. Where is it shaded? It is shaded below his feet. So below means less than. And then let's figure out solid or broken. Well, duh, just look at it. It's broken. So we know that if it's broken, then that would be just a less than with no little line underneath it. So let's clean that up. Y less than negative 4x plus 3. All right, so let's figure out where to start maybe. I'm checking the numbers. Negative 4, 3. So it looks like all the problems have 4s and 3s in them, so maybe that doesn't really help out all that much. My symbol is a less than. So I'm going to take a look down here at their symbols. A is a less than, B is a less than, C is a greater than, and D is a greater than. So I'm not going to try C or D just quite yet. And then what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a positive 3. And B is the one that's got a positive 3 in it. So let me try B. So I'm going to say 4x plus y less than 3. And negative 4x. Subtract from both sides. And so what you end up with is y less than negative 4x plus 3. Hey, what do you know? That's what we wanted. That's what we were looking for. So that means that B would be our answer. Well, I know you're sad. You're a little disappointed, but that does bring us to the conclusion of our study guide. I appreciate all your hard work. And yes, I do know that you've been working hard. I know it's not easy to come after school and watch a video, especially a math video. But I really appreciate you being here. Really appreciate your hard work. Hopefully you feel like you learned something that you didn't, before you got here. Hopefully you feel like you picked up something that you didn't know before you got here. And so hopefully you feel better and more prepared to take the test. So go ahead and stop the video at this point. And thanks for being with us. And I don't know if we'll see you next time, but do well on the test. All right.